Howdy, folks. Welcome to Living with a Genius. I'm your host, Omar Crook. On this episode, I have countertenor Anthony Roth Costanzo. We just wrapped up Akhenaten today, in which he was singing the title role. He's a terrific singer, an amazing guest. I had a lot of fun talking to him. This is a 20-minute excerpt of our full-length interview, which ran, I think, around 45 minutes. So if you'd like to hear the whole thing, why don't you go over to lwagpod.com and have a listen. I know you'll love it. Thanks so much for listening, and here's Anthony. Right. And what about the nudity? What's that about? I have a theory, but I'd like to hear yours.
I'd like to hear yours. It's evolved. I think the original idea was that everyone is so costumed. You're in a big costume, and then you have this reveal of this person who consequently feels incredibly, not just naked, but
vulnerable.
Completely naked,
yes,
vulnerable.
Yes.
And if you think of this guy who's 17 taking over a kingdom, but in a couple of years, he's going to say, I'm not only taking over this kingdom, I'm moving it to a different location.
Right.
I'm changing the way. I mean, this
changing
is
a religion, literally. Yeah.
And so in thinking about who he was and what his psychology, what was he thinking? I don't believe, but we really don't know. But for this show, at least, I don't believe that he was this incredible megalomaniac dictator. I think he was really trying to save, at least part of him was trying to say, this is the enlightenment that I see, and I see a bunch of corruption with the priests and the way that society is running. So I'm trying to bring you to this new place. And so in portraying him not as a zealot, but rather as a human,
right?
It's very effective. And I also think there's nothing sensational about it. I mean,
I totally agree, of course.
We like to joke about it, and I joke with all my friends who come, and, we have a good time. But I think the reality is in the moment and in the show, and the fact that I can look out and see the audience, there aren't that many people turning to their seatmate and whispering or, the reality is that it is a sort of a moment of chilling honesty and vulnerability. And that sets up, for me, the portrayal of this character as he then gets every robe and every gilded crown and, all of these things. And then pares it down and, gets killed and gets resurrected, all of these things. But we start with him as a human.
Right. I totally agree. And my mother and two or three friends of mine who have come to see the production all agree with that. They say it's a really powerful, beautiful, mesmerizing moment in the show. And I see it as Akhenaten's rebirth. But he's being born into a god in a way. And this is the last vestige of his humanness in some way, where he's gone from a boy to a king to the sun god.
I like that. And I think there is a real ritual because it is the funeral of his father, where he is then also being crowned in the coronation. And I think you're right. I think that narrative of him not just being a son of Amenhotep III, but now this transformation into the great pharaoh and eventually into a god. We see it puts that in front of us. And what's so great about this production is, as you know, there are no super titles. The storytelling is in the visual world.
Right.
And in the Philip Glass score, before each scene, there are these little synopses of what's happening in the scene. And then the ancient Egyptian that we sing, or the Aramaic that you sing, or that the Hebrew, or,
the Akkadian.
Akkadian, it talks about and illustrates what's happening, but it does not, in fact, tell narrative. So we have to create the narrative in our performance and in the visual landscape. And I think this is a really great way of doing it.
I agree. It's one of the most exciting shows. I mean, we get, I think everybody in this business at some point gets a little bit sick with experience, when you've done so many Beethoven Nines, and I love Beethoven Nine. I love Orff. But you do them enough where you're ready for something new. And we've done the same Bohème twice in 10 years. We've done the same, this and that. And when something like this comes along, like Barry Kosky's Magic Flute, this Achim Fryer's Götterdämmerung, those types of things, I go bonkers for it.
Yeah.
Just because, I mean, it's novel, first of all, and it's very challenging.
Yeah.
Learning how to toss a ball and figure out what comes next is very hard.
It is. And I think it's that way for all of us. But I think it's that sort of suspension of focus, you know what I mean? The suspension in the air of our focus as a group trying to do this that makes the tension for 3 hours sort of really exciting for the audience, and it makes it fly by, I think. I mean, I've never seen it, and certainly that's not everyone's experience, but a lot of my friends who don't go to the opera come see it and they go, I know, it felt like it was over really
Everybody's
fast.
saying the same thing. Yeah, all of my friends are saying the same thing. Did you work with Philip Glass before this experience, before Akhenaten?
No, I'd never worked with him. I'd been a huge fan since I had seen Einstein on the Beach in my formative years. And so, you know, I was excited and a little intimidated to take this on. And especially when he told us at the last minute he was coming in London where we premiered this production. It was scary, but here I got to relax a little bit because he'd seen me once and I met him once. And so we actually spoke like normal human beings.
Right.
And to be able to be close to an artist like that, and I mean, not that we're close, but I mean, to have the proximity and the ability to interact with someone
and collaborate in some way.
And it's totally thrilling, you know. And I'm a total Philip Glass fan. Not everyone is, but I see its place in the firmament and I respect it and I love it.
Do you have any other projects with him coming up, or is it just kind of
I hope this will continue for a long time, and there are many other ideas I have, so you never know what might happen.
Yeah, that's right. So tell me what you're preparing for now. You're going to Salzburg?
I'm going to Salzburg to do this piece of Matt O'Coin's and also Gluck's Orfeo.
Yeah.
But before we rehearse that, then I go to San Francisco Symphony, sing the Messiah. Then I go back and rehearse in Salzburg. Then I sing, before we open in Salzburg, I sing Le Grand Macabre with Simon Rattle and Peter Sellers.
He was just here, I think.
With Berlin. And we do that in London at the LSO at the Barbican. And then then I go open Salzburg, and then I go to Berlin to do it with the Philharmonic there. And then go back to New York for a concert, and then off to Finland to do Kaija Saariaho's newest opera, which will be very exciting, with Peter Sellers also directing that. And then I'm not sure when this will air, but then a really exciting Baroque opera at a summer festival. So I don't know if I'm allowed to say it yet, but
okay.
I mean, I don't know when they're announcing.
I see. I understand. Yeah. So what I'm getting here is that you're constantly traveling.
It's a lot of travel.
What about your personal life? How do you manage that? Are you lonely? How does that work?
I'm totally lonely all the time. But I also have found that at every show here in Los Angeles, 10 friends come. And, you know, I don't know that many people. So there's a way in which the community keeps you alive. And we've had a great community within our cast, which has been wonderful. But it's very lonely. I mean,
do you have a steady partner? Do you have
I don't at the moment. I mean, for the most part, I have people that are anchors for me in some romantic or partner-like way. But it's very tricky because you start dating someone, or you are dating someone, and then you go away for 8 months.
Exactly.
And you could fly them to see you if they're interested in that, but it's a question of, have you established that connection? And then you have some people who understand that, and you know, who are, you know, in New York where I live, and then it becomes something different. But I feel
I mean, are you okay with that right now, or how long is that going to last? Because I did it for a couple of years. And I was dating the girl who I'm married to now, who's my wife. We have 2 kids, and we almost didn't make it, frankly. I mean, I was gone, like you said, 6-8 months out of the year, and you know, it's tough.
It's very tough. I think when I used to be very, very nervous about, because I wanted to get married and I wanted to just get it settled and get it, you know, have a partner, and I've realized that that really got me nowhere, the worry. And I've realized that I meet a lot of great people, and when one of the things that I have going, as a sort of steady thing in New York becomes the right thing, or if I meet the right person, I will know it and I'll be ready for it and I'll make it happen. And the farther you get in your career, you realize things like, okay, well, I'm gone 9 months to make money. So I have to spend some of that money to fly this person out, or
to find some balance.
Yeah. And I can imagine also, I was lucky enough to save and buy my apartment in New York, and it sits there and I give it to friends or rent it out to, I don't rent it because I have a co-op, so I don't technically rent it.
No, of course not.
I just give it to my friends
Sure.
When I'm not there. But when I have a partner who wants to live there, and then if they have a job that has some flexibility, they can travel to see me, or if not, they can just come on a weekend.
It's tricky though. It's tricky to find somebody who doesn't feel like they're at your beck and call.
Yeah.
Type,
it is.
It's really tricky.
It's very complicated to balance. So that's why I'm sort of in no hurry to find it.
Yeah.
But rather to let it evolve naturally.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think about things in black and white terms of I'm making a choice to have a career as a singer rather than have a romantic life or things like that, because ultimately I think I would be very unhappy if I weren't engaged in every possible way I could be in making art. So the people...
It's easy to fall into that trap too.
Yeah. Yeah, and the people that I've found who understand that about me are the people who have endured in one way or another.
I feel that way. I think that's part of this podcast. As I have off time in the summer. I don't have an agent anymore. I don't go out and sing like I used to. So I have all this extra time. I mean, I've been to film school to try and fill that hole. I've started this podcast in some way to try and fill that hole. So I know exactly what you're talking about. Are there certain habits that you have in every city? Well, I remember when I was traveling as a soloist, I would always, find the local coffee shop, or I had these habits that I'd always try and do. Our museums, I love museums, so I'd always find the Modern Art Museum.
I love museums too, and I try and do everything. I do fall into these habits, especially I'm the kind of singer who eats during the performance, like at every intermission. Yeah, I guess because I'm small, I need the fuel. Yeah. So between Acts 1 and 2 of Akhenaten, I go back and I eat.
What do you eat?
Right now it's like chicken breast and sweet potato and things like that.
It's like a meal.
Yeah, it's like a meal.
Yeah.
It's not, I'm not skimping on the food.
Yeah.
And an apple and, all of these things. But before each performance, like in the afternoon, I generally, wherever I am in the city, I find my favorite place. In LA, it's this place called Pine and Crane.
Oh, I don't know it.
Oh, it's so good. You've got to go.
Yeah.
And
Is it here in downtown?
They have really elegant Chinese food, incredibly fresh. So I always get, and I've gotten into my habit, and I get the same thing. It's called 3-cup chicken and pea sprouts, and I sit at home and I have this big lunch, and then I'll go to the same place and get my little package of chicken and sweet potato thing, and an apple, and I'll bring that, and it doesn't matter whether I'm hungry, but I eat it because that's the routine.
Now, is that partly superstition? I used to fall into terrible superstitions.
I think everything is partly superstition.
Is it?
I mean, I have many superstitions, depending on how intimate you want to get. From
very intimate.
Okay,
I mean,
good.
come on.
I have to sleep 8 hours.
Okay. Whether you're singing or not, just every night.
That is how
That's the goal.
If I don't get sick if I sleep 8 hours, and it's a tremendous amount of horrible, annoying work for me, because I will wake up after 6 hours and be ready to get up. I'm one of those people.
Yeah.
And so then I spend the next 3 hours to 4 hours trying to get the additional 2 hours of sleep.
Right. Okay.
So that means I have to leave myself like a 10-hour window to get 8 hours.
Sure.
And it's horrific.
Yeah.
I also don't. What's the way you would say that? I don't come to bring anything sexually to fruition the night before a show.
Okay, like a boxer.
Yeah,
All
like
right.
a boxer.
Okay.
And maybe it's complete superstition.
I don't know. I don't think so.
But there's a sort of tension that I feel, and when I when I do it close to a show, whether alone or with someone, there's a kind of, it's sometimes harder for me to get engaged in the performance energy.
I don't think that's superstition, actually.
And what I don't like is when the nerves come, but they don't energize you. They just sort of sit on top of a tired.
How do you deal with that? Because I had to go to a psychiatrist, the whole thing. I had this performance anxiety in college that was just totally debilitating.
I've been through that too, and I've been through all of it. I realized at some point what it was about for me was, yesterday I sang so well.
Yeah.
But today's the day of the show, and my voice doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
And now I've lost it, and it was so good, and it was this sort of remorse combined with the anxiety. And I realized that, when you get to the theater, what you have to think is, okay, this is what I've got, and I'm here, and I'm not sick, so it's not that I'm canceling. I just have to do the best I can with what I have.
Right.
And, if it's a night that Philip Glass is here, it's the night that Philip Glass is here. And I'm going to do the absolute best I can.
With all the tools that I've been trained to have.
And that's all that I can really do.
Does it ever just crash and go down the tubes?
It hasn't recently, but it might. And there are
I mean in the past. Have you had to deal with that?
Oh, in the past, of course. Yeah, sure. I mean, nothing has been so detrimental that I felt it's really ruined my career.
Right, or added to your anxiety.
There's a funny story. I was doing something at Carnegie Hall once, and I was having one of those days.
Yeah.
And I was sitting before I sang on the side thinking, now, if I pretend to faint during the aria, right?
If I clutch my arm and fall over, nobody's going to say anything.
And then they'll carry me off. I just stay down and it'll be over. You think you have a show like that, and I just thought it was the worst, and I wanted to quit afterwards.
Yeah.
And then the next day, the New York Times came out and singled me out for the best performance of the evening, and gave me this incredible, rapturous paragraph. And you think, well.
Yeah, what'd you learn from that? What's the lesson?
The lesson is what you feel is not necessarily what people experience, and vice versa. But, I think that performance is much more important than perfect singing. And what makes...
We agree on this.
That's good. And what makes opera really boring often is singers who are interested in just singing perfectly or beautifully or whatever. And I think that the art form is about creating drama in music, and that's what it was called when it was started, drama per musica, not opera.
Not work.
Right. And so I really, when I'm having a day when it's really challenging, the more absorbed I am in the performance, the more likely I am to forget about how challenged I feel by whatever's happening vocally. And then it just sort of falls back into habit. Now, the other aspect of this, and I was talking with Glass about this a little bit, is just practice. When you have put something into your muscle memory so much that you get in front of 3,000 people and you can't possibly remember every technical principle, but it's ingrained and your body does it. And that's the state that I like to be in. And when I'm in that state, it's less likely for me to get really upset and nervous, even if my voice is feeling not great. And as my teacher would say, there are about 2 days a year your voice is going to feel perfect.
I know. And it's never on stage.
And it's never on stage.
It's always in the shower.
Yeah. So, I'm getting used to it.
Yeah, I feel like on those days where I can absolutely sing anything for as long as I want, the next day is shot.
Yeah.
Like I am done.
Yeah.
I can't sing at all.
Well, it's tricky too for me because if I'm not one of these singers who can take 3 days off between shows and then the day of the show I warm up and sing. I have to be singing because I like to keep my voice pliable and alive.
And predictable.
And so, but it's a question of how much I sing and what I sing.
To balance.
So, tomorrow we'll have a brush-up rehearsal for Akhenaten, and I'll be thinking about... I think I'll just, mark the rest of this, or I want to sing through the aria because I want to feel that before the matinee tomorrow. So it's always, and it depends also how tired you are, how much you've eaten, how much you've slept, how much you've flown.
If you went out to drinks.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing I don't do when I'm singing mostly is drink. And it's disappointing to me because I really like to drink.
Well, it's so social,
Yeah. But I've gotten to the point now where it must have been a year since I've had a drink because I've been working nonstop for a year. and I'd rather not get sick. I don't sleep as well when I drink.
Same with me.
My cords are just a tiny bit more brittle.
And you got to push just a little bit more.
Right.
And the next day is a little harder to sing. Yeah.
And for me, I just decided, you know what? These are formative times. You know, I'm not being paid $1 million a year to sing a concert here and a concert there. So, you know, I'd rather just play it safe. And that's a sacrifice that I'm willing to make.
Well, there you have it, folks. Anthony Roth Costanzo. Thanks, Anthony, for being on the show. I really appreciate it. I enjoyed our interview very much. I hope you guys did too. I want to thank LA Opera for co-producing this segment with me. If you'd like to hear the full episode, why don't you go over to lwagpod.com. I'm up to 44 now. People like Eric Whitaker, Jeff Beal, James Conlon, all sorts of really interesting folks. I'd love it if you'd join me over there. Thanks again for listening. I hope you have a great day. And until next time.